So today we're learning the Mayim Rabim that the Rebbe said in 1977. We're at chapter 3 on page 298. Now here, the Rebbe is going to introduce to us a Kabbalistic idea, which we've already heard and spoken about, but it's in a different context here, so I want to just address that. The issue in this discourse is, how do you deal with lots of worries, anxiety, and things that disturb you? That's, and in particular when it comes to making a living, because making a living touches us all to the core, But the issue is greater than just making a living. And the language used by the Rebbe's great ancestor, the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, of Shneur Zalman, is tir dos haparnosa, and many anxieties and bothers, worrisome issues of parnosa, of livelihood. So the question is, this idea, what the abundant waters. So he brings the verse, the abundant waters cannot extinguish the fire. Why does it have to say abundant? And he started to explain, and will continue explaining, that abundant refers to the abundant amount of worries and anxieties. So that's why it says abundant, Moshe, because there's a lot. But today he's going to introduce the concept that, where does it come from? Everything on earth has a spiritual counterpart. This Moshe is a general, true statement that's mentioned in Kabbalah and the Chassidut over and over. And if you understand the source, you could deal with it better here on earth. And this is what we're going to learn now. So let's listen or follow the text. V'hine hachidush bezeh, the novelty in the following. In the verse, in Song of Songs that King Solomon writes and says, Shemayim Rabim, that an abundant waters, leyuchlu lechabes as ha'aver, cannot extinguish the fire that a Jew has in his very heart, his innate, inherent love for God. As great as the waters are, whether it's a sea, where the waters are regular and steady, not flowing, whether it's a river where the waters are flowing and flowing with intensity up and down the river, you would think these waters can knock you out, can extinguish and obliterate and destroy your love for Hashem. So says King Solomon, which was written in Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs, written in the form of a love song, Lo yuchul, it cannot extinguish it. The question is why? If you have such worries and anxiety, it's debilitating. It's depressing. It makes you, it seems to make you stale, stop, and on and on. And the verse says not like that. So the question is why? So he explains. The Yedua, it's known, the Shayrish Hamayim Rabim, the source of the abundant waters, Shahud Tidus Apanosa, which refers to, in our classical language in this discourse, the anxiety and worries of Parnosa, the preoccupation with livelihood, Hu B'Bchinas HaToyu, it's the level of void, chaos, Shekodem Latikin, that precedes normalcy. So this is a concept, I'll just say it orally and then we'll read it inside the text. Kabbalah teaches us that before there's normalcy, tikkun, restitution and correction, there came what is called Toyu, the world of Toyu. And this goes back to the first verse in Genesis and Bereshis. Bereshis bara Elokim, as Shemayim Zoretz, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Second verse, V'ha'aretz, and the earth, Ha'isu Toyu v'voyu, was void, was chaos and void, right? So the word Toyu is already in the second verse of the Torah, okay? What does it mean that there was Toyu? And if Toyu, if chaos is negative, Why does God mention it? Like, what for? What's the purpose? Just to tell us that there was chaos? It's imagine you talk about your own family. There was chaos in our family. Okay, if you're going to see a psych or a social worker and you need to open up and so that he has a better idea of your situation, you got to tell him the whole situation, the whole picture. But when you write a Torah and you give a Torah and you want it for eternity, it's for eternity, it's for everybody. Why say that? So Chassidus Kabbalah first says that Torah is a holy world. It's so powerful and so holy that the energies were overwhelming. The energies were called in Kabbalistic language orot. But in English we use the word energies. The force of God in the world of Torah was so powerful that it didn't allow for the vessels, i.e. the kalim, to receive the light. Because to receive light, to receive energy, and to grow with the energy, to use the energy, you have to be normal. You can't imagine a teacher who's a genius coming into a classroom with regular students and just shoots off his genius mind. No one understands, no one cares, and the next day they won't come back. Like I told you once, I met this, a professor in Berkeley, California, a Brooklynite. And he was a genius, but he was like not down to earth. He wore short pants. He looked like he was around the flood. It was like or wearing two different color socks. Totally. And I understand they're like geniuses. They're not thinking about how they dress and where they dress and what they dress, but it's not normal. That yain is called Toyu, the Toyu experience. But on the other hand, Toyu is very powerful. So the problem of Toyu is that the receptacle, the kalim, the students can't follow and understand it. But as far as seeing that this is like light that's shining and that, that we realize, when these same students that won't walk away from a teacher who's a genius with any information because it's over their head, it's way beyond them, they know one thing: this teacher is a genius. This guy is so in other words, the Toyu energy, in a way, is the true energy. The true energy in a world of Toyu and Tikkun. In a world of normalcy and super normalcy, if I may use those words, Toyu is greater than Tikkun in energy, in passion. Another example: someone is very passionate and very emotional, very passionate, right? But many times recipients can't handle it. I think I told you the story. I was once speaking to a group of women and older girls in Yerushalayim at a seminary. And as I get older, certain things touch me very deeply, and I get emotional. Now, the students and the women, and these are women. These weren't men, And here I said something. I forget what I said, and I became emotional. And I saw that some of the women in the room were very uncomfortable. It was too heavy for them. They weren't a receptacle. And I didn't mean to, I didn't say, hey, I'm going to become emotional at this talk. No, it's not. It just happened naturally. As I said, as you get older, the tears come to you, the emotions come to you easier. So when you mention something, it touches you deeply because you think about it. It means a lot to you. That's what happens. But they weren't vessels. At the same time, they saw that what I was teaching wasn't just lip service. I lived with it, right? So that's the virtue of Toyu versus Tikkun. Okay, I'll say another one example, and then we'll move on. Let's say the Rebbe by Farbrengens. The normal Farbrengen was 1:30 Shabbos afternoon, and you said L'chaim, and the Rebbe spoke, and you sang a niggin, and another 2-3 like that, 2, 3, 4 hours. It was over, and then mincha, and right. Imagine the Rebbe of Farbrengen is saying a lot of L'chaim. And imagine if I bring in, he tells you to turn upside down your hat. It's like, what's going on here? Is this the same Lubavitcher Rebbe that I've been listening to for years? Right? That's a Toyu experience. That's an unusual experience. But you see in that there's something unusual here. I don't know what it is. I don't even know how to handle it. But I know that I just went through something very, very different and special. And if you take it that way, then the Toyu is very positive. In 1983 or so, 82, 83, Rabbi Kuna, Shlomo Kuna of Los Angeles, California, was $17 million in debt. Literally, not figuratively. Okay? And the Rebbe spoke at a Farbrengen before Sukkot, and the Rebbe heard about his practices of Toyu, giving free food and free tefillin and spending and buying properties and not knowing how he's going to pay the mortgage, for the sake of Judaism, Yiddishkeit, for reaching out, not for his own self-purpose, for himself, but to do more mitzvahs, to help more Jews. And the Rebbe said at the Farbrengen, I believe I was there, the Rebbe said there needs to be Toyu in the vessels of Tikkun, in the Rebbe's language. Oiros de Toyu, Bekalim de Tikkun. The passion that you have, tune in, is correct, is great. Don't give up on that passion. But you got to put it into the Kalim of Tikkun, where the Kalim of Tikkun are able to take and feel that it's passionate. The Kalim of Tikkun itself is not passion. It's normalcy, day in, day out, day in, day out. I told you once when I was a boy or a young teenager, I kept a diary. I look back at my diary now, most of the days I write, it was a regular day. It was a regular day. It was a regular day. Why are you keeping a diary to write it was a regular day? Come on. Most days are regular days. Nothing, exciting or different. That's not Toyu, that's Tikkun. Toyu is the excitement. Toyu is the ha, right? the zenith pinnacle, that the wow experience. So this is about Toyu. Tikkun is the normalcy, l'taken, to correct. Tikkun olam. Tikkun olam, which is a phrase used, right? The correctness of the world, the perfection of the world, the helping the world be a fine world, a good place. That is very organized, very normal. What we're learning now is that Kabbalah says that Toyu is the source of the Nefesh Habamis, or the Yetzer Hara, the animal drive, the evil inclination. And why? Because the Nefesh Habamis, the animal drive, wants to be like just wants to do what it wants. Lots of passion. An animal is very passionate. That's why when we eat like an animal, we're very passionate. Our head is in the food. We're all over the food. Passion. That's a behemoth, an animal. Adam, a man, a human, is settled, calm, and normally and thoughtful. It says Kabbalah, Adam comes from Tikkun and behemoth comes from Tohu. That's what it says in Kabbalah. The Rebbe says here, when we talk about the Mayim Rabim, the abundant waters. The abundant waters, they come from Toyu. The chaos in one's life caused by the lack of a livelihood and all the other struggles that we have is a Toyu experience. And the verse says, Mayim Rabim, the abundant waters, cannot extinguish the love that's innate and natural to the godly soul, which the godly soul on the surface is Tikkun. So that's what you have here. In other words, the interpretation of the Alter Rebbe in the verse of Shir HaShirim is that the Toyu experience cannot override the Tikkun human experience vis-a-vis the godly soul. And that's why the godly energy and spark that every Jew has is never extinguished. As crazy as you get. You hear that? As crazy as you get. And whatever it is, which seems to, like, I've lost my godly spark. No. It's dormant. It has a lot of dust. You have to dig into the earth to find it. That's all true, but it's there. So that's the Alter Rebbe's interpretation. The Rebbe here in this chapter is going to add a nuance which is very important, and that is, based on what it says in Chassidus, that the scenario of Toyu versus Tikkun is in the realm of what we call manifestation, the way God already creates a world of chaos and a world of correction. Once you say, Isser, that Hashem creates the world, once you say God creates, that means it's not God. It's a creation of God. You're talking about an experience that's removed, an iota, and in concept, it's already removed from the Godhead. So both Toyu and Tikkun are removed from the Godhead because they're created by God. Then there is God himself, which we call in the Hasidic language of the Chabad, Atzmus, essence. Essence is. Essence is not created. Essence is. Story that we've mentioned before, the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Rebbe of Chabad, sees his grandfather. He says, Zayda. He doesn't define what's Zayda, who's Zayda, which grandfather, how grandfather. It is. That's essence. Says the Rebbe, that although outwardly, when we say outwardly, we mean from creation and down, Toyu, chaos, has the advantage of passion over normalcy, which is Tikkun. The truth of the matter is that the Neshama is rooted in essence. The Nefesh Elikis that we just said, the godly soul, is from the world of Tikkun. And therefore you would think, Velvel, that chaos can eliminate it. The answer is it cannot. You know why? Because it's plugged in deeper than Toyu. It's plugged into essence. Toyu is not plugged into essence. Toyu is already, use the word a condition, a manifestation, a level, whatever word you want to use, concept. This is what we're going to learn now in the text. Before I go on, any questions on what I said? Hillel, you want to say something? No. Okay. Let's continue. We're on page 298, second line after we're now on page 299, top of the page. It's only one line. The Zeu Shenikroyim Mayim Rabim, this is why King Solomon calls about the worries and anxieties of livelihood, abundant waters, liyosim rabim, God mitzat sheirishumakoyram, because they're also abundant from the perspective of their source, i.e. the world of chaos. Zeu haravusa, and this is the novelty, next page, 300. That the waters cannot be extinguished, the abundant waters cannot extinguish the fire, the love, and the rivers won't extinguish it either. Although that the abundant waters come from the level of chaos, which precedes the world of normalcy, which is the source of the godly soul, nevertheless, Lo yuchlu lechabes chas v'sholem. They cannot extinguish God forbid avam, the deep inherent love that every Jew has, shebenefesh in his godly soul. And why not? V'atam. And the reason. This is what I just told you a moment ago. As it says earlier over there in the Maamar, in the Pasuk, the verse in Song of Songs, chapter 8, the verse before verse 7 says, Rishpeho rashpeye shall heves yud. Its coals are coals of fire, a powerful flame. Now coals, there is the coal, and then there's the embers, and right, and there's a fire. So the verse says, Rishpeha, the coals, Rishpe Eish, and it's a flame fire. And look further. This means that the source of the soul is in that's in the essence of God, that's even above Toyu, Gam Pchinas Toyu, B'Pchinas Toyu. Meaning that the source of the godly soul is in the flame of Hashem, as it's associated with the coal. One second. Even above. I want you, those that have the Sefer, the book, to look in. Looking for a second here. Look at the bottom of 300, the note. There's a difference of opinion among the commentators whether or not the word shalheves yudke should be read as one word or as two. Reading it as two words, as it is cited in the Maamar, allows for the translation, the flame of God. It was stated previously that the source for man's soul is the realm of tikkun, which begins in the realm of Atzilut, a level in which the power of the godly light has already, Isser has already descended and contracted to such an extent that it can enclose itself in the kalim, in the vessels. This, however, refers only to the immediate source of the soul. In truth, however, the soul is rooted in God's very essence, the ultimate source of all being. This level is far beyond the level of Tohu. It gives a good example, next paragraph. The relationship between the godly and the realm of Tohu can be explained by the analogy between Yaakov and Esav. It says, on a simple level, Esav was the firstborn, and Yaakov had to acquire that right through deception, right? In essence, however, Yaakov was the firstborn, as Rashi explains, through the analogy of two pebbles placed in a tube. The one that comes out last entered first. So too, although Esav, Tohu, was the firstborn, in actual fact, it is Yaakov Tikkun who has the higher source. That's what he's saying over here. I thought I saw, one second. Okay, let's go to the next page. Where are we now? Well, the Maila Yosef was still on page 301, the last line. Oh, Maila Yosef, and even greater, Kamosha, who b'pchinas, next page 302. Sur shalamaylam Hashem sheshaydish Neshama. Okay. On a higher level, the soul source can be described as an analogy of a Flintstone. The fact that sparks, I'm reading from inside, can be produced by striking a flint indicates that it contains the potential to create fire. Nevertheless, there's no actual fire within the stone. For that reason, it can lie deep in the ocean for hundreds of years and yet still produce sparks when removed from the ocean. So too, even when the fire within a person's soul is not openly burning, its potential to produce godly fire exists. That's the answer, Chevra. That is the answer. How is it that one can be dull, dormant, mixed up. As Mark and Menashe were talking about before the Shir, their early beginnings in Newark, Elizabeth, New Jersey, and Menashe said, he wants to know about the Frum community, how it was in those days, right? That's okay, that's fine. But the most important thing is that when you discover your neshama was always there, and not any less of the neshama. Some people think, about the teshuva, gets a new neshama. No, my friends, your neshama is the same. You exposed it now, but the neshama wasn't touched. You could schlep the neshama into a lot of schmutz and filth. That's true, but the neshama.
Rabbi, but you mean refined? The neshama is refined.
Refined? Okay, use the word refined. But the point is, I'm saying because there's a Flintstone. The Flintstone is in the water, Moshe, hundreds of years. You take it out and you rub it with another Flintstone, the sparks come out. How is it that the Flintstone for 100 years in the ocean can do that? It's immersed in water for 100 years. And what's the answer? That's the chitzonius. That's the superficiality, the outside. But the inside is on fire. So when you rub it, you're getting the inside out. And that's our job. Our job is to rub the neshama, to tickle the neshama, to say, neshama, get out, wake up. You're my neshama. You understand? And that's what the Rebbe is saying over here, using Kabbalistic words, but it's so practical, that the Mayim Rabim, all of the disturbances, Moshe Myers, of parnasa, of livelihood, and the challenges, they're real in this world as we know this world, but at the same time, Hashem has inserted a neshama and godliness into the world, and that comes from God's essence, not just God's manifestation. So if you plug into the essence, the soul will come out and it will give you the power to overcome the challenges. And, it's like, 1 second.
Like the motherboard.
What, like what? I'm sorry, like what?
Like the motherboard.
Like the motherboard, okay, good. We want, it's like we want, like it should be, rosy and charming and wonderful. Okay, it's nice if you get that gift. It's something that takes a lot of training and a lot of work and a lot of thoughtfulness. But when you put on a scale the difficulties in your life and the good things in your life, that's one analysis. And sometimes the difficulties outweigh the goodness, right? So you get upset and morbid, depressed, whatever, melancholy, angry. But if you realize that the neshama is beyond the scale, it's only the manifestation of the neshama, how it acted and acts, that's on that scale. But the essence is beyond the scale. So if you touch that, and if you live with that, and if you bring that, then you're a happy person. And that's the meaning. I was thinking about this last night. Ezel Asher, who is wealthy? Hasamechem chelkoi. We say this and we sing it over and over. But think about it. Think about it with, seriously, with your eyes closed, with no one disturbing you, no cell phones. Think about, what does it mean? Who is wealthy? Someone who is happy with what he has. And so, on one hand, you would say, you know why he's happy? Because he has whatever I have. If Hashem didn't want me to have that, I wouldn't have that. But that's a simple interpretation and a true one. It's much deeper than that. Ezel Asher, who is wealthy, Hasamechem Chelkai, he realized that what he has, what is neshama, he has a neshama. Not he has a bank account. And now he has good health. That's a wonderful, important thing in life. He has a neshama. And if from on high, for whatever reason, which we don't understand, and we don't ask for, we don't have the wealth, and we don't have a strong livelihood, and we don't have strong health, on, we need to know Hashem is the same. The soul is the same. Eve, take Job. What did Job do that he deserved such torture and punishment? And if you think there aren't people today that are living a Job life, there are. Unfortunately, there are. I know people have lost 3-4 children. Okay? For whatever reason, that, and like, how does a person live that way? And it's very hard. But I've also seen people who live more with the neshama find tranquility and peace on some level, that they're not only able to survive but thrive. It's not easy. Talk is cheap, and I'll be the first one to say that. But what we're learning here is that how can it be that a stone should be in the water for hundreds of years and still you could, someone said, well, it's a Flintstone, and science says a Flintstone, if you rub it, fire comes out. Chacham, explain that. Hashem obviously made the Flintstone. What did he want from making a Flintstone? Why isn't that applied to a piece of grass or to other types of minerals, etc.? Dafke the Flintstone. Why? Because the message of the Flintstones, what we're learning here, the message is that your neshama is on fire. But you got to just tap into it. And that's his message here, the Maamar. That although the Mayim Rabim, the anxieties and the worries and the concerns are so overwhelming, and they're rushing, and it doesn't stop, get into your neshama. And Shlomo HaMelech says, the neshama, the waters, even abundant waters, can't extinguish. Let me just finish the paragraph. As explained in B'Kutei Torah, page 303. B'pirush HaKosov v'haruach toshav Elokim asher nesana, that the spirit will return to Hashem, who gave one the soul. Shebchinas Elokim asher nesana, the level of Elokim, that is the revealed part of the soul. Who B'chinas Tzura now, Shebchinas Elokim, that the Elokim, the godly part in you, is like a stone, a Flintstone, as we described earlier. Okay, Chevra, think about it, and we will continue tomorrow. Mitzvah Shem. Have a great day. Bye-bye.